Today's video is sponsored by Omni Gaming and their latest Kickstarter, the Dice Deck. Bags and tubes aren't the worst way to store and transport dice, but there is a better way. Dice Deck is a fantastic system designed to keep your dice safe, secure, and tidy. Each card has padded slots, which holds each die individually, so all of your precious math rocks are protected. They work great for metal, gemstone, sharp-edged acrylic, and other specialty dice that you can possibly have. My favorite functionality of the Dice Deck is that it is fully expandable with each new card, being compatible with any existing deck. This allows for the Dice Deck to be expandable for any size dice hoard. So get a card for each of your dice sets and stack your deck. The magnetic system will also be used for character vaults, dice towers, and other storage will all be part of the same product economy. Support the channel by clicking the link in the video description and back the Kickstarter, as the channel gets a portion of the proceeds, and it helps us highlight awesome D&D products and continue to create content. And now what you're here for. I killed my wife's character, and she cried. I run a game for my wife and a friend. They each play 2 level 5 characters. My wife was playing a barbarian and a paladin. Our friend was playing a sorcerer and a rogue. They had just finished clearing out a dungeon and fighting the boss, nearly dying, and using most of their resources in the process. Headed back to town with their loot, they get lost and end up in a part of the woods they'd passed through before while hunting Carveloths. They find for the second time a stump with an oversized woodman's axe stuck in it. Detect Magic has it light up. The first time they were here, they were heavily wounded and heard the sound of rattling chains nearby and fled back to town. They hear the chains again, but this time decide to take the axe. Only the barbarian succeeds the attempt to pull it up and decides to take a practice swing on a nearby tree. She crits and deals 2d12 plus 4d6 damage. Then the tree hits back. 3d6 plus 6. This hits harder than anything they've fought before. Also, Sorcerer has 2 spell slots left. The Paladin has none, and the Barbarian was out of rages. The fight takes 2 rounds and another crit from the axe amazingly, but they put the tree down, and it explodes acid on the Paladin and the Barbarian. They're a little roughed up but happy they have a new toy. The first magic weapon they've come across. Then the sound of screaming on the wind, but there's no wind, and several more trees start to shift and head towards them. I tell the party that their characters feel a sense of dread and foreboding. They insist they can handle it. I take a second to remind them of their current resource state, and that their characters have a distinct feeling that something more dangerous is controlling the trees here, and that they should regroup and possibly return later. My wife's characters decide to stand and fight. Our friends' characters try to convince them to leave now with little success. To be fair, this was all in character for them. 3 more tree thralls lumber in. 2 rounds later, everyone now agrees that it was a mistake to stay, but it's too late. An attack of opportunity takes down the barbarian. The paladin stays by her friend using the protection fighting style to fend off the attackers, protecting her downed ally. The sorcerer tries to help with Arms of Hadar, but they ignore him. The rogue figures out why the trees are focusing on the barbarian. She won't let go of the axe. The trees are ignoring everyone else. He dashes in, picks up an axe and bolts. The trees try to give chase but are too slow to keep up. The rogue drops the axe hoping the trees will go for it, but since no one was wielding the axe, they revert to attacking the nearest enemy. The sorcerer goes down, followed by the paladin. It's important to note at this point that we have a house rule with death saves. Once you have 2 of either successes or fails, you roll blindly behind the DM screen. This way, no players know the state of a downed ally. Unable to help his friends, the rogue hides until the trees return to the forest. He then sneaks up to his allies and finds the sorcerer and barbarian to be dead. The paladin somehow has miraculously survived. He uses the party's last potion to bring her to consciousness. Together they carry the other 2 back to town, arriving just after dusk. The innkeeper greets them, then sees what's happened. He begins to pull something from his vest before hesitating. He informs the 2 survivors that he isn't sure if this is a gift or a curse now, but he had commissioned a passing priest to make a scroll of raised dead for their exemplary services to the town. But he only has 1. After some heartfelt debate and real tears, they decide the sorcerer got to live today. They buried the barbarian in the local cemetery, and each character said a few words. We ended the session there. Just FYI, she isn't mad at me at all. While upset, she is looking forward to our next session, and will be making a new character to recruit into the party. That is the right way to handle a player character death. This story, on the other hand, is the absolute worst way to kill a PC at your table. A while ago, I joined a campaign on Roll20, with little to no clue on what it's about, as I want to go into it without being spoiled as much as possible. All I knew was that the module is effing ancient. Like by the time I was born, this module would have been old enough to vote or join the military or something. But I digress. The DM is a 30 to 40-ish year old man, and apparently he had been DMing for a good 20 years now, so I was in good hands, right? Before we get into the meat of the matter, I need to give you some background. My character is Raza, the noble tiefling bard. He's a carefree/gullible narcissist, but nonetheless a very silly, funny guy if you learn to ignore some of his less desirable flaws. During the sessions leading to Raza's unfortunate moment, he was just being a silly goofball, the comedy relief of the party, offering some contrast to a rather bleak setting as we're unfolding the secrets of the village. Before the event that would lead to me having to create a new character sheet, there are already certain things that I don't like about the campaign. Not necessarily red flags, but just things that prevented me from enjoying the game in varying degrees. Like how the sessions are paced is pretty messy for my taste, and how 1 to 2 people are joining and dropping out nearly every single week, and some other things. Now looking back, I think the main reason people were dropping out like flies is that the campaign was just not up to their standards. But since I was a new player, I had next to no standards, so I stayed, because despite all the flaws, I had so much fun role-playing as Raza that I didn't care. But boy oh boy, I had no clue what the future had in store for my poor guy Raza. Basically, we're a bunch of adventurers who have just stumbled into the village of Orlane after an escort quest. We were just going to stay there for a rest and leave the next day, but decided to stay and investigate after getting ambushed by a gang of lizardmen in our sleep, trying to kidnap us on that very night. After that, Raza and the party proceeded to dig around the town, doing, some typical detective works. And in the sideline, Raza has been hitting upon this hot dark elf singer chick who we escorted to the town in the first place. Let's call her Marie. Basically, Marie's goal in Orlane was to bring the instruments needed to help her sisters with the opening of a new music school, bringing the wonder of music to this gloomy town. Raza is a musician, a flirty one that is, so it's just natural that he had taken an interest in this beauty of a singing catch. Raza helped Marie set up and teach at the musical school. They even put up a banger concert for the town. After everything, Raza earned himself a date with the dark elf before she went back to the city. Clearly, she had had enough with this town herself. The dinner date was at 10 p.m. the night before the day Marie was leaving. The time of the place was kinda sketchy, but Raza's dumb so he didn't care. Raza went to Marie's place alone without the party as it should be. What kind of guys would bring the boys to a date? When he got to the place, Marie had already prepared a table in the clearing right outside for them to dine in the starry sky. Ah, how romantic, I thought. And it should be fine since we both have dark vision, right? Wrong. This is where things were about to go south. Raza and Marie were having a pleasant conversation while having their dinner, and out of literally thin air, we were surrounded by a gang of masked assassins. By literally thin air, I mean Raza and Marie, despite both having dark vision, weren't able to tell that someone was creeping up on us. No perception checks were asked. They threw nets on us, which restrained us, and here's the sad part. After we were restrained, they injected us with paralyzing drugs, or something like that, and since I dumped Con, I naturally failed to save. The party with the power of metagaming. The DM somehow is okay with metagaming according to his words. Came to try and rescue us as the assassins were leaving, with our incapacitated bodies. But their attempt was futile, as they were met with the darkness spell. After that happened, my jaw dropped when the DM told me to roll up a new character. It happened so fast and so much like a fever dream that I didn't know what to say to him, so I just went along and made a new character on the fly. After the session, I asked him how that would even happen. He said that the assassins were there to kidnap Marie, but since I was there, they had to get me too. He said something along the line of, that was just unfortunate, and that I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. So you're saying that I just happened to be at the exact time that the kidnapping was planned to happen? Like the time and location that you came up with? And all I did was agree to go on a date? Like they could have kidnapped her any other night, but it just had to be on the night of our date exactly at 10 p.m., the time you decided that we would date at? Besides that, the thing that didn't sit well with me was that we didn't get to even see what was coming, and didn't get to act much when it came. I felt so powerless and saddened by the situation that I made up some BS reason to leave the campaign. I was a new player. I felt like I was not in a position to argue against him, so I chose to leave quietly. But I did get some perspective out of it, and a D&D horror story to post on Reddit though. Haha. Luckily for me, as of now, I'm happily participating in 2 long campaigns by another DM, who is so good at DMing and puts so much effort into his craft. He's the GOAT. Have you lost a character and it was epic and tragic? Or was it just a DM with a grudge? Share it with us in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things D&D. Stay tuned for more amazing Dungeons & Dragons content.